So this was just a brief statement from European Friends for Scotland in solidarity with the Scottish people after the High Court verdict today against the Scottish independence referendum. We believe that Scots should be welcomed back in the European Union, and they should be able to use their right to determine their own path into the future rather than be caught in a democratic nightmare with England in the so-called United Kingdom. Anyone else want to say anything to that?
I think you said it all.
Yes, grand, thank you.
Fabulous pipers! Now we'll be hearing from these guys later, so they could just stand there forever. I mean, they look very good actually, but you know, if you need to rest your pipes, lads and lasses, just you can have a wee sort of rest. Because here we are, this is the Time for Scotland rally, because it's time for Scotland to show that it will not accept being denied a chance to decide its future. We are not here to criticise judges. That is a speciality of Tory Prime Ministers. We are also accepting the Supreme Court judgment, something that the last two Prime Ministers refused to do. But we are saying it is ridiculous. We have been in a situation, and we are in it now, where the Scotland Act provides a simple means to resolve this, which is to give Section 30 powers to this Parliament. Why the heck is that not happening now? So we've had a setback today with the Supreme Court making clear what we already knew. And the world sees it now, crystal clear. We are not in a union of equals. We are not in a voluntary union. And to that degree, we are not in a democracy. So we're here tonight to make a really very important point, which is that whilst the politicians, the Supreme Court judges, the commentators, the media and everyone else has their say, politics is about the passion of people, the belief of people. And you've shown that tonight, you dancers, by coming here. But not just here. Before we have our first speaker, let me just say hello to our Indy live streams, which means most of the rest of Europe watching. We have 6 demonstrations happening right now across Europe, from Rome at the Colosseum to the Dáil in Ireland, Berlin, Munich, Paris, Brussels. We also have rallies going on, as you know. I don't think I can even keep the list in my head because every couple of minutes it has increased. But you know, we have Glasgow, we have Stirling, we have Dundee, we have Perth, we have Inverurie, Aberdeen, Inverness, Portree, Kirkwall, Loch Gilphead, Dumfries, and I've forgotten some. So say hello to them, comrades, they're watching too. And without further ado, our first speaker, who is the First Minister of Scotland. Thank you, Lesley. Thank you. Thank you, my friends, my fellow supporters of Scottish independence, my fellow supporters of Scotland's right to choose our own future, my fellow supporters of Scottish democracy, welcome to Scotland's National Parliament. Thank you to all of you for being here today to make your voice heard in support of the democracy of our nation. And thank you to those joining us in towns and cities across Scotland, and as we've just heard from Lesley, in towns and cities across Europe and the world. We are here as representatives
of Scotland's independence movement, a movement that will grow in numbers with every day that passes. But today, our independence movement also becomes Scotland's democracy movement. Today, it has been clarified, something that many of us suspected but hoped was not the case. But it has been clarified today that the United Kingdom is not a voluntary partnership of nations. Any partnership in any walk of life that requires one party to seek the consent of another to choose its own future is not voluntary, it is not a partnership at all. And while today's ruling may create temporary relief on the part of unionist politicians and parties, they should know the hardest questions that have been posed today are questions for them, because they are questions about the future and the basis of the United Kingdom. Now, the Westminster establishment may think it can block a referendum, but let me be clear, I am sure on your behalf today, no establishment, Westminster or otherwise, will ever silence the voice of the Scottish people. Our task, our job as Scotland's peaceful, civic, inclusive, internationalist independence movement is the same today as it was yesterday. It is to build the case for Scotland becoming a normal, equal, independent member of the European family of nations. It is to build, through dignified and patient persuasion, clear, overwhelming majority support in Scotland for our independence. And then it is to ensure that we have a democratic process to allow that majority opinion to be expressed beyond any doubt. Independence is not an abstract notion. Independence is about the prosperity of our nation. It is about the equality of our nation. It is about the internationalism of our nation. It is about building a better, fairer, more equal Scotland for this and generations to come. This is a movement. This is a movement I have been proud to be part of since I was a teenager. And it is a movement that I know is destined to win the independence of our country. So let us rededicate ourselves to that task today. Let us make sure that we take this message to every part of Scotland, because what has been shown beyond any doubt today is that the only route to equality for Scotland within the British family of nations is by Scotland becoming an independent country. Let's get to it, my friends. Let's win our independence and let's build the Scotland we know is possible. Thank you all very much indeed.
Righty. Well, can I just get a wee bit of silence for our next speaker? This is the first time this woman has spoken on a stage. She is a new Scot. She's a French woman. She's a representative of Europe for Scotland, the group that has got together all these solidarity rallies across Scotland tonight. She is here to read a statement that is being read in all these European capitals tonight. So I hope you will give her some space, but a massive, massive yes-er response and welcome. And could you please welcome Elise Tallaron.
Hello everyone. I have to apologise if I sound and look a little bit nervous. When I put my name forward to do this a few days back. I didn't know I was going to speak straight after the First Minister of Scotland. So I hope you will forgive me for being a bit out of sorts. So as Lesley said, I'm a proud French woman, born and brought up in Normandy in the northwest of France. I am also a very proud Scot, having lived in Scotland for close to 30 years and having had citizenship, dual citizenship for about half of that time. I also stand here as a proud European who benefited from the EU's freedom of movement policy and other policies, without which, to be frank, my life as I know it today my work, my friends, my family wouldn't actually exist. So I'm a big fan of the EU, and that's why I brought my little star here that's shining for Scotland to rejoin the EU. So tonight I'm going to read a statement from the campaign group Europe for Scotland. Scottish friends, today is a sad day for Scotland and all Europeans who believe in democracy. This morning, the UK Supreme Court certified that the UK's unwritten constitution does not allow the Scottish Parliament to fulfil the democratic mandate from the Scottish people for a new independence referendum. Whilst the UK government withholds its permission, Scotland is trapped in constitutional limbo, stuck in a supposed voluntary union against its democratic will. We all know that the United Kingdom is all but united. For decades, Scotland and England have been on divergent political paths with radically different ideas for their future. It was England that voted for Margaret Thatcher, David Cameron, and Boris Johnson. Scotland not only rejected each and every one of them, but in fact didn't vote for any of the last 10 Tory Prime Ministers. It was England that voted narrowly to leave the European Union. Scotland never wanted to leave and voted overwhelmingly to remain. It is England that would like to be global Britain. All Scotland wants is to be in charge of its own destiny and not become collateral damage for England's terrible choices. How many more Tory Prime Ministers should be inflicted on Scotland against its democratic will? How many more years should Scotland's businesses suffer because of Brexit? How many more generations of young Scots should be deprived of the Erasmus programme and opportunities to freely travel and work in Europe? How much longer should Scots be denied their democratic right to choose their own future? Scots deserve the same rights and opportunities that we Europeans enjoy. And that's why I am here today, to express our European solidarity and to tell Scots we stand with you. Tonight, my friends from Europe for Scotland are gathered in solidarity in 6 European cities. They are showing their support in Berlin, Rome, Dublin, Paris, Munich, and Brussels. Tomorrow, they'll also be gathering in Denmark. Our message is simple. Scots are not alone. Europeans support Scotland's democratic right to choose its own future. And Europeans would love to welcome our Scottish friends back into our European family and build a better Europe together. The Scottish people's mandate for a new independence referendum must be respected by the UK government. Brexit must not be Scotland's destiny. Europeans will always keep a light on for Scotland. The fight is not over. It has only just begun. Solidarity.
a first speech. You'd love to be around for the second one, wouldn't you? Anyway, thank you so much to Elise. We're now moving straight on to hear from a man, one of two MPs who've come up the road from Westminster. A long journey, they'll have to go straight back down again. But please, let's hear it for Tommy Sheppard, MP.
Edinburgh, you look magnificent tonight. If you could see it from here, we are many and we are on the road to victory, because the Supreme Court judgment this morning has left a gaping gap in the British Constitution. They have said that there is no legal means by which a component part of the United Kingdom can choose to renegotiate its relationship with the rest of the United Kingdom. And that means that we, as the First Minister have said, are no longer in a union of equals, no longer in a voluntary union at all. That is now dead and buried. And unless the British Constitution is changed, then that means we are no longer partners in a union. We are prisoners in a political structure which we cannot change and which we are unable to leave. Now, that reality conflicts with the principle of the claim of right for Scotland and the right of the people who live in this country to determine our own future. A right that up till now has been accepted by a broad political consensus in Scotland and in the United Kingdom. Indeed, a right that was exercised in the referendum of 2014. And we are here tonight, first and foremost, to assert and defend that right to self-determination. And to say, we will not submit, we will not give up, we will not give up our campaign for our independence. And the choice, the right to choose, the need to choose, has never been more essential. You only have to look at what is happening in the United Kingdom at the moment. A government of spivs and millionaires that have recklessly engaged in a right-wing economic experiment that has brought misery and reduced the living standards of millions of ordinary people. A government hell-bent on putting pressure on the ordinary people in order to defend the wealth and capital of the few. And I have to say, when you look at Her Majesty's loyal opposition, it isn't that much better. And I say this with sadness, but we have a Labour Party leadership which, despite the valiant efforts of many of its members, has less ambition today than it has ever had in its 122-year history. A Labour leadership terrified of putting up taxes on the wealthy, embarrassed to support the trade unions that funded it in their campaign for a living wage, and happy to acquiesce in post-Brexit isolationist Britain. Now, when we look at that duopoly of despair south of our border, we ask ourselves, can we do better than this? And the question is, we certainly can. And that is why we must have the right to choose. Not just to change the government for a few years, but to change it forever, so that in Scotland we always get the government that we vote for, and that government always reflects the will of the people who live here. That is the prize that we are campaigning for. Now, many people, many of our opponents, misunderstand us. They think this campaign is just about identity and flags and emblems. It is not. This campaign is about power. It is about having the ability to change the world in which we live for the better, about having the political agency that comes with independence in order to change things around us. And when our opponents say, and this is the most vicious lie of all, that this debate is a distraction from the real cost of living crisis and the real issues facing ordinary people, There is no bigger lie than that. Because rather than be a distraction, political independence for our country is the means to tackle that crisis. Not just for a day, but forever. We cannot really change the inequality of wealth and power in our society whilst we have no control over the movement of capital or labour across our borders. We cannot get the resources and investment we need to develop our 21st century activities, industries, without the power of independence. And that is why it is necessary, it is more essential than ever, that we have the right to choose and that we take that right. And we have an opportunity, my friends, in a very few years' time, to press the reset button, to build a different kind of country. A country where the economy is measured not by the profits of city corporations, but by the well-being and happiness of the people. A country where innovation and productivity and automation is used to unleash the potential of humanity, not to enslave it. A country where everyone is respected and the diversity and complexity of our communities is celebrated. A country which plays its part on the European and global stage. And that is the biggest prize of all. Because rather than be the means of our separation, independence will be the means of our integration with the rest of the world and our ability to work with others to face the challenges that humanity is presented with. And that is all worth fighting for. Now, we got a setback this morning. Of course we did. And we know we meet that news with disappointment. But let us not be disheartened, because we know now what we need to do. If the British state will not allow a democratic event such as a referendum to be able to express the will of the people, then we will find other means to allow the people to have their voice. And I very much welcome my party leader's statements this morning, that we will take time and we will work together to make sure that we can develop a strategy which is going to work and we can begin to implement in the new year. Because, my friends, over the last few years, we have had our disagreements, we have had our disunity. And I have to say to you, we need to find a better way of discussing our differences, and sometimes we will need to set our differences aside in order to come together united for the bigger prize. We have been already on a long journey, and there is more road ahead of us. But take cheer tonight that the thing that can never be defeated, no matter how many judgments come against it, is the will of the people to succeed. So we go from here. We explain the benefits, the essential benefits that will come from being an independent country, and how we don't have to be part of this decaying post-Brexit isolationist Britain anymore. That does not have to enslave us. We have the opportunity, if we take it, to do something different and to start afresh. And that is a campaign worth fighting. I'll see you on the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Our next speaker has also made quite a journey to get here. Some of you might remember, if you were actually at the last demonstration held here, which was held the night that Scotland was dragged out of the EU against its will, Brexit Day. What was that, 31st of January 2020? And I'd love to pay tribute to Mike Blackshaw, who helped organise that, who died last week. He should have been here. He is here. But the baton is handed on to a new generation. And one of the young women who astonished me on that night, because she came across from Glasgow despite having a broken foot on the train, quite gamely, but she's a game lass. She is a Catalan originally. She now works for the European Parliament. Please give it up for Valentina Servera Clavell.
I'm a bit short. Hello, thank you, Lesley, for having me. And as you said, this is in honor of Mike. If it wasn't for Mike, I don't think I would be here today. And yeah, this is for him. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's bloody chilly. I forgot how cold it is in this country. But this is how we win. This is showing up the support, being united, and convincing them. Do not worry about them. We will convince them with arguments, with facts, with courage. We will convince them. But this is how we win. So today, the Supreme Court decided to ignore the Scottish people. It decided to bow down to Westminster and its oppressive system. Today, it might feel like we're farther away from our freedom, but truth is we are not. Today is a clear example why we need this referendum now, and we cannot wait any longer. This is not a union of equals. This is not a voluntary union. If this is a voluntary union, then show me the door so I can leave. They keep telling us this is not the time, this is not the moment, this is not how it's done. Well, we're saying enough is enough. We're putting our people on the streets, we're raising our voices, and we're saying to Westminster, we will vote. The truth is they are scared. They are scared to give the Scottish people the power to decide. In 2014, they had a lot of beautiful lies to tell us about the union. They could promise us everything. Now we have seen the reality. Now there's no hope in this union. There's no hope in this reality when Westminster ignores the voice of millions of Scottish people every day. The reality in the UK is more depressing than Matt Hancock in I'm a Celebrity. I work in the European Parliament now, and one of our favorite hobbies with my colleague is sending us memes about the UK situation. We first laughed with Boris, we laughed even harder with Elise, but the sad truth is now we don't laugh. Now we're actually worried about the people in the UK who are going to have to face this winter with the skyrocketing bills, with skyrocketing inflation, and no solutions from the people who are meant to care and represent for them. In Scotland, we are aware. In Scotland, we know this is not how we want to rule our country, and we're taking decisions in our hands. With what arguments does the UK want us to stay? Like, really, what do you have to offer? If we stay in the UK, Scotland will be dragged farther down into this recession. Scotland will be dragged farther down in this inflation. And the only thing we have for us is a very dark, dark future in this union. Since 2014, we have won every election by a landslide. The Scottish people decided. The Scottish Parliament, a sovereign building voted in by the people of Scotland, has a majority of pro-independence parties. This is what the Scottish people decided. No Westminster, this. You know what, as Lesley said, I'm originally Catalan, and I mean the accent might give it away, to be honest. But I've been here before. This is giving me flashbacks. And while I do not recommend you take the same route, I do recommend you to be inspired by the people of Catalonia. Less than 50 years ago, our language, our culture, just speaking Catalan could get you killed, tortured, or imprisoned. We were submerged in an immense dictatorship. And today we stand proud. Our language survived, our nation survived, and we, like you, are in the road towards independence. Today, my dear friends, today we stand proud of Scotland. We stand proud of the Scottish people, of our culture, of our legacy. We stand in the shoulders of giants like Mike. We stand in the shoulders of giants of many. And we will do this for the generations that are here now for the ones who will not see this country free, but most importantly for the ones to come. This is the country we want to give in inheritance. Like Mary Berber said, the will of the people is the law. And now we will vote, my friends, we will have a referendum. Son ALBA en Visca Catalunya. Thank you.
Fantastic. And you know, that is such a strong point in all the meetings that I have done recently which contributed to this event. I've asked this question at every event. How many people here have got children who have already left Scotland? Because if that's you, we cannot have that continue. We have to act now because we're going to lose our kids. This is not the situation that we want for them. They're fit and able to make decisions. Let's make that decision to invest all that energy, all that enthusiasm, all that future in our country, not someone else's. So here we have our next speaker, and actually making precisely the point Tommy Sheppard was making about the need for everybody to be able to channel their energies in one direction. Would you please give a massive welcome to Neale Hanvey, ALBA MP.
Good evening, everyone. We are Scotland. We are sovereign. This is not a time for giving up. This is the time to push forward. Scotland's future in Scotland's hands was the key message in 2014. We didn't say Scotland's future was going to be in the Supreme Court's hands, that Scotland's future was going to be in the hands of Tory Prime Ministers. We said it was for the people to decide. The UK state apparatus has now been exhausted. We tried every gambit, and still they say no. We are hostages in a union that denies democracy. It is completely unacceptable. It has to be challenged. It will be challenged, and we will do that. The Supreme Court today said that we are not a colony. In the last 9 months, £8 billion of Scottish oil and gas revenue has flowed into the Treasury in Westminster. Scotland's share of that is absolutely zero. The wind farms that have been constructed off the Fife Coast and others are being cabled directly to England to heat 2.8 million homes. Scotland's share of that revenue is absolutely zero. Our people are cold and hungry. The food bank in my constituency in Kirkcaldy has seen its cost escalate from £2,000 a month to nearly £20,000 a month, and it's at risk of closure. Where are our people going to turn to then? The UK government talk of compassion. I see no compassion in their eyes when I see them in Westminster. This campaign, our campaign, needs to start agitation and action. We need to work together. We need to settle our differences or leave them to one side and be united. And that must start with an independence convention of all of Scottish MPs, MSPs, councillors and Civic Scotland and important people like Lesley to get a view about how we take this forward, how we win our independence and how we challenge the British state. For us to hold a plebiscite, it must be a true Scotland United plebiscite. We must recognise that there are Conservatives who support independence. There are Liberal Democrats who support independence. There are Labour voters who support independence. SSP voters who support independence. Our movement must reflect all of the people of Scotland. We need to send people to Westminster not as MPs looking for a career. We need to send people down there to properly settle up. I'm going to close with something that I think is completely inspirational. I may misquote it. But the UK state today has said no. And as Canon Kenyon Wright said, we are the people of Scotland. And we are sovereign, and we say yes, yes, yes!
Thank you, Neale. We're going to have, because you probably need to get just your feet moving a wee bit, warmed up and so on, we're going to have our pipers back to lead you in some stirring stuff. So whilst they just take their positions, can you actually manage to squire a bunch of pipers, eh? But they're all coming together now, and our drummers. Please give them a big round of applause for coming out tonight and for entertaining us. Thank you very much. Do you want to hear these guys play jingle bells at the end? They're all okay. That's not to suggest that there should be a whole lot of kind of requests coming in, but you know, you could always lean on them. Now we've got another couple of speakers from very different backgrounds again, and it's fabulous actually that something in Scotland just naturally is outreaching. You've got someone who was brought up in Northern Ireland here. We've had a whole lot of people from different airts, but we're all Scots. And that's a fabulous thing about this country that you can't say about many others. But anyway, let's have a big round for our next speaker. She's an American. She got involved in politics when her brother was murdered in New York and he was shot. She's made Scotland her home. Please give a big welcome to Leah Gunn Barrett.
Hi, thank you and good evening. Today's UK Supreme Court decision is not only irrelevant, it's illegal. Because Scotland's constitution is still in force, in principle and under international law. There was never any need for the SNP leadership to ask another nation's court for permission to do something we've always had the power to do for ourselves. The principle of the sovereignty of the Scottish people over any government or parliament was upheld in the 1689 Claim of Right, which was inserted into the 1707 Treaty of Union by the Scottish negotiators as a precondition of the treaty and of the Union. It was ratified by the two parliaments as a guarantee that the Scottish Constitution would remain in force after the UK was created. In fact, recently, King Charles III swore allegiance to the Claim of Right, and Westminster has acknowledged it on 3 separate occasions, in 1989, 2012, and 2018. By contrast, England's unwritten constitution is based on parliamentary sovereignty over the people, which is the polar opposite of Scotland's popular sovereignty. Westminster is not sovereign in Scotland, the people are. The Claim of Right gives the Scottish people the power to sack a government that fails to uphold their rights and interests. The Convention of the Estates, a tribunal of Scottish citizens, had the power to depose a corrupt government and replace it with one that served the common good and upheld the people's sovereignty. Look, here's the thing. Either we're in a voluntary political union or we're not. Today's ruling makes it crystal clear that we're not. Our colonial status explains the ongoing plundering of our resources, the feudal system of land ownership, the loss of 4 million Scots who were killed, displaced, and deported to overseas English colonies. It explains the vast wealth inequalities, the persistent poverty, the absurdity of an energy-rich nation having fuel-poor citizens, and the lowest state pension in the developed world. It explains decades of Westminster governments we did not vote for, and it explains why Scots don't know their own language, history, and constitution, because the colonial power has suppressed them. And it explains why a UK Supreme Court believes it can tell Scotland what it can and cannot do. The nation of Scotland was not extinguished with the Union. The UK tells the world Scotland is in a voluntary political union, but tells Scotland it's in a colonial prison. Political parties are not going to liberate us. Only the people can do that. We, the people, have always had the keys to break out of this union and restore our sovereignty. But to do so, we have to unite, create a mass liberation movement, and revive a modern convention of the estates. Because when we're united, the British state will be utterly powerless to stop us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leah. Our next speaker is someone who used to grace the first Scottish Parliament, a representative for the Scottish Socialists. You might remember him, as my stepdaughter fondly remembers him, as the man who was actually somersaulting with joy to be elected. Please welcome Colin Fox.
Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. I'm sorry to tell you my somersaulting days are behind me. Thank you very much, Lesley. I want to say to ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I'm proud to stand here alongside you tonight. This is a day when supporters of independence have got to be standing up and be counted. And the Scottish Socialist Party is proud to say we've been supporting independence for 25 years now. We'll continue to support independence until we achieve our goal, which is an independent socialist Scotland, a modern democratic republic. Brothers and sisters, there's a scene in the very first Pirates of the Caribbean blockbuster, I'm sure you watched it, where the Royal Navy Commodore says to Captain Jack Sparrow, "You are without doubt the worst pirate I have ever heard of." And Jack Sparrow, as you know if you've seen the film, replies malignantly, "Yes, but you have heard of me." And I'm bound to say that scene came to mind today when I was listening to Lord Reid at 9:45 this morning. For whilst the defeat that he announced is a defeat for those who thought there was a parliamentary road to independence, because there isn't, at the same time it makes clear we won't get a Section 30 order, we won't get a second referendum, nor our independence, unless we have majority support. And that remains our objective here today and every day. And Lord Reid, unwittingly perhaps, made it clear to the independence movement that independence will not be achieved via parliaments at Westminster or Holyrood. It won't be achieved via conservative law courts like his, those representatives of the British state, and nor will it be achieved by conservative politicians who argue that independence is about changing as little as possible, about keeping the pound, keeping the king, keeping NATO, remaining in EU, letting the money men continue to tell us that nothing can be done about fuel poverty or child poverty in that Scotland. We reject that attitude. Independence is about change, or it's nothing at all. It's about transforming Scotland into a better country than we see round about us today. That is the only strategy that will prevail. And today, brothers and sisters, could be a historic day. If it's the day that independence supporters realise that we need a better strategy than this one, if we're going to defeat the forces of the British state who bar our way. So what do we need to win from here? First of all, we need a majority. We need a majority for independence, and we don't have it yet. And that remains a challenge that we must rise to and succeed. Every single one of us here, every single one at the rallies across the length and breadth of Scotland, every independent supporter across Scotland. And we need a persuasive economic case for independence that convinces working people that they'll be better off with independence. And we don't have that yet either. And we need a better strategy than we have at the minute. So my final message to you today at this rally, we need to convene, brothers and sisters, a new Scottish Independence Convention where we invite all those who realise there is no parliamentary road to independence, and we have to secure that majority and then prepare for an extra parliamentary campaign. So I'm looking forward to that new Scottish Independence Convention meeting in Edinburgh next year to see how we get that majority and how we can prepare a successful strategy for securing our independence. What about you? Are you up for that? Well, if you are, and I hope you are, then you can come and see me tomorrow morning on the CW picket line. You can come and see me here tomorrow afternoon at this very spot where I'll be alongside the EIS teachers and preserve their just pay claim. And if you can't make these 2 picket lines, you can see me at my regular surgery on Princess Street, 12 till 2, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Forward, onwards to independence.
Thank you, Colin. Still actually as bouncy as ever. Now, just a serious announcement. Is Yvonne Menzies in the crowd? Because your friend Wilma Brown has been taken ill and is in the ambulance there. So, Yvonne Menzies, can you make your way to the ambulance, please? Now, that is a sorry note to have to strike. But hopefully everybody else is still fine in the audience. You all right? We have one more speaker before another burst of pipers and then our final batch. Would you please welcome a man who has helped actually finance this event tonight. It was an incredibly modest event to fund. But if you don't get that little bit of financing that just made all this very basic stuff available, it would not have happened. So please welcome from the Scottish Independence Foundation, Ian Grant.
Hi, good evening everybody. I joined the SNP for the first time, because I've joined it more than once. I first joined it in October 1966. Little did I think that 56 years later, I'd be standing here and would be still trying to seek independence for Scotland. Well, this morning I sat and listened to the judgment, as you all did probably, of the Supreme Court on the question of the second independence referendum. And I thought, Jesus, it's ludicrous that the future of Scotland is being decided by what is effectively an illegal court, illegal under Article 19 of the Treaty of Union. I also think it's kind of ludicrous that we Scots asked this court to adjudicate in this matter. It's sort of almost analogous to the Scottish nobles asking Edward I to select a new Scottish king in 1290. However, at least the court was clear, they blocked a lawful referendum and finally confirmed that what was a consensual union, well, sort of consensual, because there are lots of riots and so on in Scotland, has now turned into a forcible union, a prison from which Scotland has no clear route of escape. Frankly, given the actual case that was put by the Lord Advocate, that they probably had little choice. However, on the matter of the SNP evidence to the court on the inalienable rights of the people of Scotland to self-determination, I thought that the court showed naked contempt for Scotland. They almost ridiculed the reality that Scotland is effectively now a colony of the UK. Apparently, we're not oppressed sufficiently. We have... You know, despite the fact that we never get the government we vote for, and despite the fact that over the last 50 years, the UK Treasury has walked off with billions of pounds that should have rightfully come to the Scottish people. I certainly do not respect the verdict of this court, which under this Treaty of Union really should have no jurisdiction. And in fact, rather than being disappointed, as our First Minister said, I was furious this morning. So where do we go now? We say, the SNP says a plebiscite election or de facto referendum. And as long as we vote SNP, where does that lead? We already have countless, I think about 7 mandates. And we've got to be certain that if we do vote in a plebiscite election, we demand and get independence. I'm told that there's going to be a special SNP conference on how we go forward in the spring of this year. But what we need is, as many speakers have said already, is a much wider constitutional convention encompassing all the parties, all the Yes movement, all of Civic Scotland. This was promised in the past and not delivered, and we need it now. This must be on the agenda for next year. I think the Scottish Independence Foundation will certainly help finance it if folk actually get together and get it going. And so if the SNP does not, if the government, I should say, does not establish this convention, the movement must do so. In the last 8 years, we've progressed, in my view, not one whit towards our goal of independence. This court judgment must now re-energise us to channel our anger and frustration into a positive campaign, which focuses, first of all, on democracy for Scotland, secondly, the clear case for independence, thirdly, the clear plan of how we achieve that independence. We must also essentially have a vision and a narrative for our journey to independence and beyond independence to make us the best country we can be. And lastly, we need clear answers to all the questions, all the risks of getting independence, the currency, the borders, Europe, etc. They're actually quite easily addressed, but have really not been done so properly so far. My wee book, though, does answer quite a lot of these questions. So my first reaction this morning was satisfaction that we got a clear, unequivocal answer, albeit no. My second was fury at being treated with such disrespect in terms of being a colony or not being a colony. And my third is determination to channel the anger and frustration into a positive campaign. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Ian. I appreciate that over the years it may seem that progress is glacial, but look anyone in the eye in Scotland and ask them one question. Do you think Westminster works? The answer is no, and we may not have yet convinced people that independence is the answer, but certainly Westminster and any belief in Westminster has gone, and that is massive progress. Something for us to build on. So anyway, our last bout of pipers, and who knows, jingle bells might well be in it. Take it away, lads. Do you want to hear Jingle Bells? That's a bit of a mixed one, actually. I'll just leave it to the guys. I just wonder how they'll tackle Jingle Bells. They won't. Okay, you're Mr. Miserable, but we'll just see, okay? Yeah, fine. Okay, is that a yes or a no then?
From within, can strangers be only eyes to see it all as yin? The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. Your mother tongue spoke different ways from past to present ties, each separate and yet entwined. It's where your real strength lies. But should one strand untwine itself, the others to forsake, then all would be forever lost, for all the strands would break. The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. While we still seek to blame our woes and pains on someone else, we'll never hear the strength to solve our problems for ourselves. In truth, we fought each other mere, learn this figure past, then together we can choose for herself at last. The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. The choice will be upon us soon to set her destiny, and I'll drink a toast to Scotland yet, whatever yet may be. Whatever yet may be. Scotland yet!
It's a bit cold, might be a wee bit damp. So here's a temperature test. Were we happy with the decision today? Are we going to do something about it? At Edinburgh Women for Independence, we're very conscious that we stand on the shoulders of all those other wonderful women who went before us. Did the suffragettes say, well, we're going to go home and do nothing? No! Did Mary Barber stay up the close when they needed a rent strike? No! And what about Elsie Ingalls? She didn't put her stethoscope away when it was obvious that the women of Edinburgh needed maternity health care. So we're standing on the shoulders of great people in the past, and look around, because this is today and tomorrow is the future, our future. But this month, our regular meeting, we took a moment to remember those members who aren't going to make it, who aren't here anymore. The latest member that we've lost was Kathleen MacDonald from Musselburgh. Edinburgh Women for Independence can become a no man's land on occasion, for understandable reasons. But last Saturday, we remembered Mike we remembered Mike and all that he did. So yes, across Scotland we're grieving, but we can remember, we can honour, and we can acknowledge, but we can never despair, because we cannot cease the fight. We will continue fighting for our democratic future with democracy and moral right. The moral right of self-determination that comes after a judgment in a court, not a Scottish court, in a capital city, not Scotland's capital city, that tells us our voices, our choices, our votes count for nothing. Aye, that'll be right. Who dare say that this is a union of equals, a union of consent, backed by an ancient treaty? But I tell you what, I rather like the idea every sovereign state has the right to withdraw from a treaty if that treaty is not any more compatible with its interests. Hang on. That wasn't us. That was Geoffrey Cox, MP, Attorney General in 2019. Oh, what a difference 3 years makes. Fast track now. 3 Prime Ministers, 4 Chancellors, and all the other MPs left over, switching their deck chairs round Westminster's sinking ship, hoping to pick up the red box, the enhanced pension rights for a job done badly. That man Johnson told Ukraine this year, Ukraine is a country that has the right to choose its own destiny. So it would seem choice and democracy are very fine things for some, but not for all of us. We know from experience they lie. They break promises. They bury reports. There are unfilled vows. They build fortunes on the labour of others. They're still lying and building fortunes on the labour, the sacrifices of others. Ideologically driven, political choices that have fueled the cost of living catastrophe, ushering in austerity Mark II. The true colours of successive Tory governments have come to light, have come out in the wash. Liz Truss, remember her? She's there in the footnotes. She didn't even get her foot across the door at Bute House, but she made no effort to disguise Tory government preferred tactics. Cut and run. Cut the taxes, bring about a low-tax society, and run down public services to the degree that they have to be sold off. You can't have low tax and public services to the level we require, that we want, that Scotland deserves. Go ask the Americans, they'll tell us. Tory governments are the charlatans of political trickery-pokery. They lied and stole our trading with our biggest neighbouring partner. They lied over alleged benefits. Our students have lost Erasmus. Travel and work opportunities with our biggest neighbouring partner have gone. Farmers, fishing communities, exporters, workers, benefits, name them, count them. Can you see us, Europe? Our lights are burning. Growing the economy, creating public wealth requires fair taxes, not fast-track contracts for friends and families, not cutting bankers' bonuses, not turning a blind eye to corporate greed. We can clap our workers, but we can't pay them. International tables now place the United Kingdom as the 6th richest nation, now behind India. So how come last month, October, Bernardo said a fifth of parents it surveyed had struggled to provide sufficient food for their children over the past year. The number of emergency food parcels given to people in crisis by food banks in the Trussell Trust network for the financial year 21-22 was a staggering 2.1 million. That is a disgrace. Fresh fruit and vegetables are being given on prescription as a test pilot in 2 boroughs in London. One is Tower Hamlets and the other is Lambeth. Food insecurity is rapidly becoming actual food poverty. And with that, the inevitability, the increase in mental ill health and conditions that we are all too familiar with: obesity, diabetes, hypertension. In turn, Scotland doesn't require a change in Westminster government. The Labour Party, its ideology, its policies are nothing more than a pale blue democracy deniers, the same ilk as the Tory party. These are just some of the cold, hard facts. Without independence, we will shrink into the oblivion that will be the withered rump of a broken, dysfunctional union. That is not for us, is it? No! We have elected a majority of pro-Indy MSPs and MPs. We put them there. They know the job that they have to do. We put them there to drive forward independence. That is their jobs. And we in the grassroots know our job. That's why we never stopped, we never went away. So, will we be leafleting? Will we be marching? Will we make sure that independence is a normal, in-your-face, everyday topic? Will we be the movement? Will we be the momentum? Are we prepared for the Musk-like kitchen sink they're going to throw at us? It's going to be Project Fear on steroids. But are we prepared to continue to work hard and fight for what is our right? Okay, sorted. Thank you. Good night.
Righty. Well, we've had a whole variety of speakers on here tonight, and I hope that you see that, and I hope you hear it. There's people who are critical of the government, there's people who support it, there's people from different political parties, from none. This is the movement. This is the way Scots are. Genuinely thoughtful, argumentative, yes, but able to focus on the big task in hand. And here's a speaker now, the penultimate speaker, from one of the groups that did so much to try and canvass and get out the vote at the last referendum, from a lot of those areas, the estates of Scotland, the housing estates that had been forgotten. So please welcome Alan Armstrong from the Radical Independence Convention.
I would very much like to thank the organisers of tonight's event here and all the other ones throughout Scotland and in Europe. It is a real privilege to be here, and it shows the beginning of a fight back like we've not seen for several years. On October the 11th, the Radical Independence campaign was down outside the Supreme Court in London. We didn't go down there begging for the court to make a decision in favour of Scottish independence, or letting us have Scottish independence. What we did was we were there saying, let the people decide. What we saw today was their answer. It's a bit like the political equivalent of a woman who's suffered at the hands of an abusive partner being told, if you want a divorce, you've got to get the permission of your in-laws. So that was exactly what we saw today. But going back, we've learned quite a lot about the institutions of the British state. Back in Indy Ref 1, we saw the British Broadcasting Corporation. We were told in 1999 that there was now going to be equality of nations within the UK. The BBC didn't become the Four Nations Broadcasting Service. The way it reacted throughout that independence campaign was a disgrace, and the vast majority of people know that. Not so well known is another institution of the British state. The Guardian revealed that the British High Command was making preparations if Scotland voted yes, that they were going to take away Faslane and Coulport. Effectively, they're going to declare this area the British West Clyde Territories. And I'm quite sure that it made Jackie Baillie the Governor-in-General. But since then, today we've seen the Supreme Court. What we ordinary people have to do, and the politicians of other things, is in actual fact disengage from all the institutions of the UK state, one by one. And one of them is, next year, on May the 6th, there's going to be a coronation for King Charles III. Already, our Republic has organised a demonstration to be held on Calton Hill. Go back to 2003, and you may remember the Queen was asked to open this new building. Had the Queen a record of championing Scottish self-determination? Far, far from it. We'd be much more happier that day if this Parliament had been opened by somebody like Lesley Riddoch, backed by the Proclaimers. But there was, up on Calton Hill, an alternative demonstration. And that was built on the Republican principle of recognising the sovereignty of the people. The British state, UK state, is not built on that. It's built on the principle of the crown sovereignty. Sovereignty of Westminster. It has all these crown powers it can use, and basically, with its unwritten constitution, it can make up the laws as it goes along. And as for the legal system, it was actually a Tory MP, Sir Geoffrey Nabarro, who better described the British legal system than anyone else. The best that money can buy. That's exactly what we're up against. So next year, as part of the disengagement, please attend the new rally up on the hill, on Calton Hill. That would be another way of disengaging. We can look around many other of the institutions and find out how we disengage from them. Just to finish up though, we are not alone in this. One really interesting thing that's happened over this time is Gwynedd Council in Welsh-speaking Wales voted by 46 to 4 votes to say we do not want a Prince of Wales. It would be nice if we could see some councils in Scotland doing that. It would be nice if we could see Nicola Sturgeon say, I am not going to turn up at the most undemocratic institution of the Scottish state, the Privy Council. It's worse than the House of Lords. If she removed, Nicola removed herself from there, it would be an indication we are having nothing to do with all these undemocratic institutions. So, let us join next year. Once again, let the people decide, but also invite people from Ireland, from Scotland, and also from England. Let the peoples of these islands decide. That is what we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
And now our final speaker from Voices for Scotland, Ian Black.
Thank you, thank you. I don't know what I did to deserve going last, but I've got a wee chant up my sleeve for later if anyone wants to join in. So how are you feeling? Cold, I knew cold was going to come. Angry? Frustrated? Determined? Hopeful? Aye. Isn't it? Confident, thank you, thank you. It's not as though there was any great surprise in the Supreme Court correctly interpreting the law. What was a surprise is they think we have no right to self-determination. But what it shows us with absolute clarity is that the game is fixed against us, and we must stop playing by their rules. So who's up for acting with independent intent? Who's up for a wee bit of rebellion? We cannot, with any legitimacy, continue to act as if the UK will grant us a referendum or respect our democratic right after a plebiscite election. And we now need to follow a new strategy. As Lesley has so clearly set out, it's time to add a new phase to our campaign. One where we prove to ourselves and our international friends that we're not only up to independence, we're up for independence. Our route to independence continues to be based on building a bigger majority of those people living in Scotland to support our right to self-determination. We will do this with kind, informed, data-driven, peer-to-peer campaigning, respectful conversation after respectful conversation. But with no referendum route, our ultimate goal is to convince the international community to recognise our independence. This is why this new phase is so important. But this phase must also have a clear strategy designed to achieve a clear goal. We must not march just because we're angry. We must march to build our movement, build support, and demonstrate the legitimacy of our demands. With no legal route as defined by the UK Supreme Court available to us, our actions now must lead to independence being internationally recognised and Scotland taking its rightful place as a sovereign state. Now, recognition is fundamentally a political decision, a process for convincing the people and their leaders of the international communities that we deserve it and that recognition would serve their strategic interests. But what do we have to offer the world? As an energy, I do have some notes on that. As an energy-rich, strategically placed, developed nation with a vision of itself as a vibrant democracy seeking to build alliances to solve the problems that humanity and our planet face, yeah, not so much. And we do love a party, and we often let our opponents beat us at football, so we don't pose much of a threat. So can I suggest there are three audiences for this new strategy and for our public campaigning. The first audience is the movement itself. We must aim for each of the events and the rallies to be bigger than the last and to build our team. We need to bring back into the campaign all those who drifted away over the last 8 years and re-energise them with our sense of purpose and our clarity of goal. This new public face campaign, in all its positivity, colour and determination, must link the how of independence with the why, and through this build the confidence of those undecideds and unsures. That's the second audience. Talking only about democratic outrage will not help people afford heating, food, or their mortgage. We must show them how we will use our powers to solve the cost of living crisis permanently, not with a series of financial sticking plasters, but through structural and institutional change that puts the common good first. We must show that at these events that independence will mean the oil and gas industry profits are not put ahead of our children's warmth, and that we will all share in our renewable energy riches. We must show that land reform will lead us to lower rents and better insulated homes. The final audience, there are international friends, neighbours and family. Through our ever-growing, ever more vibrant, ever more determined campaign, we will ask, in a polite but not to be ignored way, that the time is drawing near when the international community will be asked to recognise our independence. We will be saying, for example, to our cousins across the water in Ireland, we want our Scottish lion to join your Celtic tiger to roar across the globe. We will ask our friends in Europe, perhaps starting with the old alliance and those countries who kept a light on for us after Brexit. They know that the independent Scotland will be a willing and equal partner as we seek to solve the difficult problems facing humanity. We will ask France, Germany, the Netherlands and all our European friends, be ready to recognise our independence when the time comes. To our Northern European neighbours, we share blood from centuries back, and we share a deep desire to build a socially progressive country and a fairer world. We're inspired by their vision of an economy that serves the people, not one where the people are just consumers to be exploited. And we hope to inspire them as we build a well-being economy to replace the growth fetish at the heart of climate change and social inequality. So we ask you, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Denmark and Finland, be ready to recognise our independence when the time comes. And of course, to our friends and our relations in Canada and New Zealand and Australia and South Africa, of course we ask you, be ready to recognise our independence when the time comes. To each of these audiences, I think we have the same message. In 2014, we learned that we can be independent. We're big enough, smart enough, and rich enough, with Westminster just holding us back. In 2016, we learned we will be independent, when despite our resounding vote to remain, the long road to Brexit began, and our independence became inevitable as the Tories' broken, insular vision of Britain led to a brutal act of self-harm. Now, many of us, me included, think it couldn't get any worse. But of course, Britain's economic and political system make crisis inevitable. And as we have lurched from one crisis to the next, we have realised that we must be independent. And we must be independent quickly. We cannot stand for our children going to sleep hungry and cold while Britain's oil and gas masters work out how to spend all of their ill-deserved profits. So to draw this rally to a close, can I ask you to join me in sending a message to ourselves, to those yet to join us, to Holyrood and to Westminster. Scotland can be independent. Scotland will be independent. Scotland must be independent. We can. We can. We will. We must. We can. We will. We must. We can. We will. We must. Now, just one last thing. The Supreme Court told us we cannot hold a referendum. Now let's hear our reply. Let's wake Arthur from this slumber under yon volcano. Let's shake the palace to its foundations. Let's quicken the sinews of any fate politicians. Let's make sure Westminster knows. Independence for Scotland. We can. We will. We must. We can. We will. We must. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Ian for a rousing end to the speeches, almost. I just want to say some thanks here because there was a bunch of volunteers, 5 of us that got together and decided to make this happen. And we just got on with it, which I always find is the only way to get things happening, eh? So I want to say thanks again to Mike Blackshaw, who is not here in person. Thanks to Kevin Gibney from Independence Live and all the Independence Live streamers. While we've been here, there has been a mixed stream going out across the world from all the streamers who have been trained and brought on over the years by a broadcast outfit that has had no state or any other kind of support at all. So please, let's hear a big, big up for Independence Live. I'd like to thank the guys in the little team that has been putting this together. That's Stuart, Charlie, Andrew, and Fraser, and Bruno, who has given us all this fabulous PA, all this stand, and done all the sound systems tonight. Thanks to all of them. Thanks as well to Europe for Scotland, organised by 2 folk from Oxford. They're academics, Nina, who's German, and Andrea, who is Italian. This is not their problem. They have made us their problem. And a massive thanks to them for getting everything that's happened across Europe organised tonight. Thanks as well to the Scottish Independence Foundation again. They're always there when you actually just need a bit of cash to be able to get the show on the road. So thank you for that. Now, we're going to finish with a woman who was standing in the corner thinking I wasn't going to notice her. But see, I know Delina McLennan. Now, you may not, and shame, actually, because that's a bit of the example of what was said earlier about us not knowing our culture, not knowing our cultural icons. We're going to finish by singing Freedom Come All Ye by Hamish Henderson. If you don't know this song, it might be the final thing that gets you to go home and learn the words. So, would you please welcome Delina, who is a fabulous actress. She did, one of the biggest things that she did was the 784 production of the Cheviot, the Stag and the Black Oil. Please welcome Delina McLennan to the stage. Right, get the old microphone down here. So say your thing.
Thank you very much. Yes, 1973 it was. I don't know how many stages, from village halls to great theatres to the Palais des Beaux-Arts in Brussels, the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. We brought the same message. Remember, you're a people, but it was written by Maddy Warden Oran, Big Mary of the Songs in 1892. Keinige bar sloag shabes come of suas straal, Gunjeit en romang hoorschijf, lenjastes kruas dorn. Gun meer kroher puele, stes tuahanicher gaas, stes hasselnicher fuert doch a elanoanicho. It means, I won't translate all of it, but remember you are our people and fight for your rights. The wheel will turn for you with the hardness of your hand and the hardness of your fist. Your cattle will be on the plain, everyone in the land will have a place, and the exploiter will be driven out. Now, the voices, not the...
You want a wee clap on the back?
No. Right. The voice isn't what it was like when I was young. But we're going to try.
We're going to try. So we might slightly move away from the microphone because neither of our voices are kind of like proper singing ones. But all of you who know this song, written by Hamish Henderson, another man who would love to have been here tonight. This is the Freedom Come All Ye. So let's hear it if you know it. And we've got the pipers, so actually that might be a blessing in disguise. Do you guys want to lead us off so we'll get the note?
Right.
O'er the bay, but there's mair nor a rock wind blowing through the great glen o' the world a day. It's a thought that would gather rotins o'er the rogues that gang gallus fresh and gay. Tak the road and seek other lonings, for the ill-ployed sport and play. Nay, mair will the bonny callants march to war, while our braggarts cruisely craw. Nor we wains stay pitied and clachin', mourn the ships sailing down the broom below. Broken families in lands we've harried will curse Scotland the brave, nay mair. Black and white into leather married, max the vile barracks o' the masters bear. So come all ye, and aim with freedom, never heed what the hoodies croak for doom. In your house, all the bairns o' Adam will find breed, barley brie and painted room. When MacLean meets with his friends in Springburn, all the roses and beans will turn to bloom. And a black boy beyond Niagara dings the fell gallows o' the burgher's doom. Right, thank you everyone. Go home and learn the words of freedom, come all ye, for the next time. Time for Scotland will be back.